I'd be lying if I said that I didn't feel scared at work. I felt threatened in my new environment. Not physically, but mentally. I felt like my skills and my intelligence were being put to the test. My mind and my self-worth were being under attack. I felt like I was in danger of embarrassment, maybe even termination. So let me explain. In my current role as a business consultant for an industry-leading technology company, I work directly with senior leadership of my company. The majority of my work is client-facing, deliverables, presentations to C-suite executives, CEOs, CFOs of billion-dollar companies. Now, as a first-generation Latino whose blue-collared immigrant parents came to the US, what the hell did I get myself into? That feeling of self-doubt, of lack of confidence. I felt like I wasn't just shooting from the three-point line. I felt like I was shooting from half court. It was a full court shot. I had unrealistic expectations for my career. You know, my parents said, finish school to find a stable job that maybe might be less labor-intensive than what we had. But what did I do? I landed this role way out of my league. That feeling of not belonging, of being out of place. The majority of my coworkers are older than me. So to them, I believed I was just young and dumb, fresh out of college. That feeling of self-doubt, lack of confidence. There's a term for it. That feeling was familiar. I've gone through this feeling before. I've experienced it before. I came across this term in college, actually, in an assigned reading for class. The term, imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. Syndrome. Like an illness or a disease. Honestly, I hated the way it was portrayed so negatively, but the definition was exactly how I was feeling. The definition of imposter syndrome states that despite the objective success in your experiences, in your accomplishments, or in your education, imposter syndrome is characterized by the feeling of fraudulence, incompetence, and inadequacy. Incompetence, not being able to meet expectations. Inadequacy, lacking or not enough. You know, as I reflect on that feeling, really, that feeling did something to me. That feeling did something for me. Really, that feeling was a positive signal. It was a green light. It was the feeling that pushed me out of my comfort zone. It was the feeling that allowed me to take action. What I also learned was how I responded to that feeling. There are 3 ways that I responded to that feeling. And it's similar to how our brains respond to extreme levels of stress. And those are the 3 F's. Fight, to seek out for help or take action. Flight, to quit, to hide, to run away. And freeze, when you're incapable of fleeing or leaving, you shut down. You're not engaged, you're uninvolved. You see, coming from a diverse, low-income community now to a prestigious, private, academic institution, the change was hard. That change, regardless of my prior academic success, Graduating from high school with a 3.9 GPA, that didn't matter. I still felt dumb in class. I felt unprepared. The material we were reviewing in class, I felt like my peers had already learned it or read it in high school. So I was already at a disadvantage. To them, it was review. To me, this was brand new. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I was out of place. I didn't align with this culture. That culture of college. The college culture. Culture as a way of life, as a way of acting, of the way of speaking. That college culture brought a lot of pressure on me. It was demanding. It was fast-paced. That culture applied pressure that moved me. Pressure from academics, from professors, their coursework. For exams, we were giving these little booklets. In this exam, in this booklet, we were told to write, and to engage material deeply, to think critically. I felt pressure from peers in the classroom. They were using big words that were intimidating. They were dominating class discussions. They were even doing research with professors after class. The pressure of college also came from career services and this word professional development that was in every other email and announcement out to the school. That's where I learned what an internship was, or what an externship was, and how important these things are for a piece of paper you call a resume. The pressure from peers who were applying to programs that I had no idea about. The pressure from peers who had already landed a summer internship because of their parents' connections in something called investment banking. What the hell is investment banking? That takes me to the first reaction, flight. I felt overwhelmed. The pressure was too much. The exposure to endless possibilities, the world of academia, professional development. I was done. I wanted to leave. I wanted to transfer. That feeling of self-doubt, the lack of confidence, it was overwhelming. I couldn't keep up with the pace of college. But I didn't flee. I didn't leave. That takes me to the second reaction, the second response, freeze. It wasn't up to me to freeze. If I wanted to, I would have left. But I had the responsibility. I owed it to my parents to meet the expectations of finishing college. I did not want to disappoint them. It would have been embarrassing to leave because it was hard and to go back home after my mom was humbly bragging to the entire family that her son was off to college studying. He didn't go off to work. He's looking for an office job. How could I disappoint my parents? You see, as I reflect on that feeling of resistance, the resistance to college was real. That resistance was experienced as a result of fear. The degree of fear determined the strength of my resistance. The more fear, the more important I felt that it was for me. The more fear that it brought me, the more importance that it was for my growth, the more importance that it was to my future successes. That brings me to the third response to imposter syndrome, fight. As I was able to identify this feeling and come to terms with it, it made me aware of my environment, of my situation. I was mindful of the resources and the opportunities at hand. You know, I still remember that moment when I decided to fight. I walked into career services building after an information session from a big pharmaceutical company promoting an internship in marketing. So I walked in and said, how do I get there? How do I land that job? And they invited me to apply to a program hosted by the school. But since I didn't have the experience, I took some online courses and threw that on my resume before applying to at least show a willingness to learn. What was cool about that program was that after the program, you were lined up with an internship for the following semester. That was great, more experience to put on this piece of paper called a resume. I ended up landing that big internship at a top pharmaceutical company in marketing that following summer. The year after that, I was accepted to a business fellowship program for up-and-coming seniors, recruiting the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. This program had a 6% acceptance rate. That feeling. Honestly, I think it's time to redefine imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome as a positive indicator that you're working towards success. That feeling as a green light. If I were to redefine imposter syndrome to be able to achieve success, then I knew I had two things. I had skills and I had challenges. And I felt imposter syndrome when my challenges exceeded my skills. But since I was in pursuit of climbing this so-called ladder, then I knew that I would always feel a sense of imposter syndrome. Honestly, I still feel that today. But I invite you to redefine imposter syndrome. I invite you to fight to overcome those feelings of self-doubt, overcome the feeling of lacking confidence. If you don't know something, reach out to someone who does. Be proactive. Ask for help. I invite you to redefine imposter syndrome. Take control of that feeling. Make positive use of that feeling. That feeling. Let that feeling drive you to build skills, to acquire knowledge, to gain experience. Let that feeling push you out of your comfort zone, even if that challenge feels way out of your league, even if that challenge feels scary too. Thank you.